From his basement studio in Rockland, Ontario, it's the Alec McNorman Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Alec McNorman Show. Today's very special guest is one Matthew Muzzi of the Wounded Warrior Foundation.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to read off the bio, if you're okay with that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Matt was born in Toronto, but we're not going to hold that against him.
Go Leafs, go.
Oh, boy. He joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 1985 as a medic and served until 1994. When he was released from, you were put on medical category, right, for your knees?
Yeah, permanent medical category for various knee operations, and they wouldn't deploy me in, at that time in the forces, as you had mentioned on one of your previous shows. The leadership at the time was lacking, and there's also the force reduction plan and the white paper from the government, so they weren't really doing much to entice people to stay in.
Yeah.
And because I ended up with the permanent medical category, they were like, "Well, you're not really useful to us anymore." They didn't kick me out, but I didn't sign an intermediate engagement. I just finished my engagement and got an honorable discharge and went on my way.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, had you been released 10 years later, it would have been a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Well, now wait a second. Now in the 90s, let's see, that was the Liberal government, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
And then if you would have got released in 2005, wasn't that a Conservative government?
I think it was Harper. Yeah.
Yeah, things would have been really good, eh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So having friends that have dealt with PTSD, Matt understands the challenges it presents, but also sees the positive impact of the programs Wounded Warriors Canada supports has on these same people, and his way of trying to give back to his brothers and sisters in uniform across Canada. Okay, so Matt, that is your bio, and it's
super exciting. I hope no one falls asleep.
Yeah, exactly. The first thing I guess I want to ask is, because like I remember back in the day, like I was a medic at that time. I just left NDMC and I went to Petawawa, where you were just getting out of from, and I remember, basically having to tell guys like jumpers and stuff like that had broken their back on a jumper, the chute didn't open or whatever, partial collapse. And basically it was the exact same thing. It was like, sorry buds, the Army's done with you, fuck away you go. And there was nothing for Veterans Affairs at all at that time. So that was your experience. So can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I'd injured my knee before I actually got in playing rugby in high school. Rehabbed it, so I had my first surgery then. I rehabbed it, everything was good, went through basic training, no issues, went through all my trades training, no problem, got to Petawawa, was doing all kinds of wonderful stuff, and then I did my pre-para course, which is just the 2-week physical training.
Well, basically it was 2 weeks of cock, basically is what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, that weren't back in the day, is before you could go on the para course, you had to do a pre-para course, which was actually even worse than the para course.
Yeah, it was embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And about a week and a bit into that, my knees started to irritate me a little bit because we were running constantly. Like, it's just constant physical training. It's running, PT. All the other PT didn't bother me. I was in good shape then. Yeah. But it's just the constant running kind of got to me a little bit. So I didn't finish the last couple days.
And a lot of running with boots still.
Oh yeah, everything was in combat boots.
Yeah.
There's no running shoes and none of the niceties that the apparent new military gets.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Change is inevitable. So I don't blame the new people. I just kind of laugh sometimes when they complain that they get a blister on their shoe. It's like, wow, you just did 10 Ks. But anyway, I didn't finish the last couple days of training because my knee had swollen up, was just a little irritated. So then the day before I was supposed to leave on the jump course, I got called into the head shed, and I can't remember if it was the AO at the time or the warrant. I can't remember, but they were talking to me and said, well, you leave for your jump course tomorrow? I'm like, yeah. And they said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I'm looking forward to it. And they said, but you had a little problem with your knee, you couldn't finish your pre-para. And I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit concerning, but not a big deal. And they said, well, we don't think we should send you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, shit, okay. So I didn't go. I didn't go, and then rugby season started in Deep River, which is a town just north of Petawawa. They had a rugby team there because there's a lot of Welsh guys worked at AECL at the time.
Okay.
And there's also a lot of military guys. So James Prevost, who I was serving with, played for them. He said, come out and play. And I'm like, okay. And then I asked the unit for permission, said, can I go play rugby? And they're like, yeah. Okay, you wouldn't send me on my jump course, but you're going to let me go play rugby.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So I went and played rugby, and sure enough, partway through the season, snap-o, tore my ACL and MCL and PCL again.
Holy fuck. So that was what you did the first time? Was all three of those?
No, I did ACL and MCL the first time.
Yeah.
Got a construction. Then this time I did ACL, MCL, and PCL for the first time.
Yeah.
So I went and had surgery, and I had what they call the semitendinosus transfer, where they take one of the ligaments from your hamstring and thread it through where your ACL used to be. It's called a dynamic repair.
Yeah.
So every time your muscles flex, it holds the joint in place. So I was rehabbing that. It was feeling pretty good. I was probably a year post-op, and then I was up practicing with the rugby team. I wasn't playing, and I was just chasing someone down, and I kind of stepped funny in a bit of a hole in the field and irritated it a bit. So I said, okay, I'm not going to run on the field because it's uneven ground. And I still wasn't playing. I was mostly kind of coaching, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And I was doing some of that, and then I was playing badminton a lot because I love playing badminton. Because after I worked out or lifted, I'd go and play badminton for half an hour, 40 minutes, because it was a great workout. And some of the guys in Pet were really good badminton players, so I got a good cardio workout. But there's a lot of lunging, so I was playing badminton one day, and I lunged and snap. So I snapped my toward the repair, and then had another surgery. And by this time, this was 90. Late 90 or early 90, I can't remember, maybe even 89, and I went back to NDMC, got another surgery. This time they did what's called a it's called a lad graft, something augmentation device.
Sounds good. If those of you that don't know what it is, fucking look it up.
Yeah.
Google is your friend.
So I had that done in a patellar tendon transfer to repair everything and cleaned up all the junk, and so that was my last major surgery. And then I had to clean up about what's this, 2021, probably 8 years ago now. I had it cleaned up.
Wow.
And the surgeon basically said, I bought you about 10 or 15 years before your knee replacement. But anyway, so just a long litany of things. So got posted to Toronto, got married, and then my career was going nowhere fast because they wouldn't deploy me, and I kept like, send me here, and they're like, no. And then I was on a temp medical category, and then they put me on a permanent one, which was G203.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who don't know how the military medical categories work, look it up. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, all different
CFP 145, I think it is. Canadian Forces Publication 145.
Oh, I wouldn't have known.
Is the one that has all the medical shit, I think. I can't remember now.
But it's got, you have your geographical rating, which means where in the world you can go, your occupational, which means what jobs you can have, your vision, your color vision, your hearing, are the 5 basic categories. So my occupational dropped to a 3, which limits some of the stuff that you can do or where you can go. And going back to one of your previous episodes when you talked about military leadership, so because I was G203, I tried to remuster to Aero Med Tech.
Yeah. So
as you know, Aero Med Tech, what's the most physical job that they'll do? Lifting up a gurney, walking it down a set of airplane stairs, maybe. In Afghanistan, it obviously changed. They were, flying in, but still, I could have physically managed the job, no problem. Career manager at the time said, no, it's too dangerous. Even though I had letters from the base surgeon at the time, my orthopedic surgeon said the guy's good to go. I was a motivated soldier, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but I was a motivated soldier. I wanted to do stuff. And the career manager said, no, you got a permanent medical category, we're not doing anything with you. Yeah. So then I tried to remuster to airframe, aero engine. Nope, those trades were closed because of the FRP, the white paper at the time, and then I said, okay, what about geotech? Well, you're not qualified. I said, why am I not qualified to be a map tech?
Yeah.
Because you have to be minimum G2, O2. I said, the only reason they have occupational as a 2 is because of the chemicals that they use for map making. Well, like some of the pictures and stuff. He said, well, too bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing here? He said, well, if you can pass your JLC, then we'll talk. I'm like, okay. So he sends me on my JLC. I said, are you sending me to Borden? I was in an Air Force base in Toronto. He said, no, you're going to Petawawa.
Yeah, that's fucking smart.
So he sent me to Petawawa on an RCR JLC, which is likened to a combat leader's course.
Yeah.
Not that I was afraid of doing the course, I was just concerned about what was going to happen with my knee.
Yeah.
And I said to him, course load me in Borden where the PT's not as physically demanding. I said I stayed in shape at the time. Yeah. And I was always in good shape. The only thing I really couldn't do was run. Yeah. So he sends me to Pat. Says, too bad you're going to Pat. You're Army, so you're going to Pat. Okay. Go to Pat. 9 days later, my knee is the size of your head.
Which is pretty big.
Yeah.
Especially now that I'm a podcaster.
Physically or mentally?
It's probably, yeah, it's, well, I do have a Napoleon complex, I've been told, so.
There's nothing wrong with opinions. They're like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I ended up getting medically RTU'd because I couldn't finish. And so I knew as soon as I got medically RTU'd, my career at that time was done. Because as you mentioned, as we discussed before we started taping, at that time, if you were an injured vet, your career path was completely stagnated, or an injured soldier. Your career path was completely stagnated. You got treated better if you were dead than when you're injured. And that's always been a bone of contention with me. And you can go back as far as World War I, and Veterans Affairs Canada has not done a great job of looking after their wounded or injured soldiers, regardless of what the injury is. Yes. So
now, having said that, did you get was your knee claimed through Veterans Affairs? Like, are you getting?
I never did. Yeah. Mostly because I took the voluntary release because I just didn't re-up. So I just finished my contract at the time, and I in my own head kind of thought that, well, there's guys out there who are certainly more deserving than me that need the pension. So I didn't understand really how it worked. So I never applied for any kind of pension because of it. Yeah,
well, you know that you still can though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would highly recommend that because it's not so much about the monetary thing. It's about having, like, when you come up for your surgery or whatever, and if you need any special adjuncts or whatever, canes or stuff to help you around the house, that's where it's important, is to have that stuff. So why come out of pocket when your injuries were sustained during military duty? So that's the only thing I'd say. Yep. But yeah, it's like I said, like, I remember when I was sitting at the UMS at CSOR, and and me and some of the other older guys were telling people about, like, what the military was like in the 80s and 90s, and they couldn't fucking believe it. Like, the young kids just could not believe that the military really did not give a shit about you, like, once you're no good to them. And I used to say, there was a sergeant major, I can't remember who it was, but he used to say to me all the time, the military is a whore. No matter how much you love it, it'll never love you back. And it's the way that it is.
And I loved my time in the military, and I said to you earlier that I almost got back in '98, and I wish I had, because I loved it. It was, the military really made a massive difference on my life. Without the military, I shudder to think where I would be today. Yeah. So it had a huge positive influence for me. I was bitter when I got out because of all the shenanigans, and almost got back in '98, and I honestly can't recall why I didn't. I wish I did. Yeah. But that being said, I served with some fantastic people, and I did have some fantastic leadership in the military. But as a whole, at that time, the culture was just so different, and basically the philosophy at the time was, if you couldn't do your 2x10 or be deployed, you weren't very useful to anyone.
And especially if you couldn't run. Like, I remember we had some guys at Field Am that, as medics, they were absolute fucking junk, but if they could run, they were like the cat's ass, man, getting like outstanding PRs and stuff like that. I was like, whatever. It was a whole different military back then, man. So, but so getting back to, obviously, you said that the military meant a lot to you because you got back in another way. You started working with Wounded Warrior.
Yeah, it was a really cool happenstance that I was looking for. My wife actually was looking for something. Sorry, I'm getting shown something I don't know if I want to see. Oh, very nice. Thanks, Frank.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just had some guests burst into the studio. We've been joined by prostate-less Frank Mio, who has no prostate and is having a hard time sitting down. And we've got Josh Beauchamp with him as well, who I guess is his nurse's aide, doing his catheter care for him with his tongue, which is all gross. I don't want to see that again. And of course we're going to continue on with Matt, who's going to tell us how he got into Wounded Warriors.
Yeah, so my wife was looking for something online for her dad. Like every year he picks a charity that he wants to donate to. And this was in 2013, right before Christmas. And she had Wounded Warriors Canada, which I had heard about before. And on there was not an ad, but basically a sign up for doing the Battlefield Bike Ride, where you started June 6th in Normandy, right at Juno Beach is where the ride started, and then we rode to Vimy for over 8 days, all on bicycle. And you had to raise a certain amount of funds to get over there, and the funds obviously going to the programs that they had at the time. And at the time they kind of worked off the United Way model, which was they collected funds and then dispersed them to mental health charities, because that was their main focus, was post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, I saw that on their website.
Yeah.
Now, sorry to interrupt, but were you an ambassador at that time, or that came after? Okay.
No, that came after. So
okay.
I was just a rider like anyone else, and then really got to know the executive in the charity, Scott Maxwell, Phil Ralph, the Padre, Steve Topham, Matt Walks, and Lori Sweet. They're some of the main people, and Darcy Shawn too. Darcy Elder, I forgot to mention him. Hmm. So they're the main they're actual employees of Wounded Warriors Canada. But then, so the more I got into it, so I did a ride 2014 and 2015. Mm-hmm. I didn't do 2016, but I did the Highway Heroes ride in 2016. Then 2017, I did another ride with them, and the Highway Heroes ride, and then 2018 was the last ride I did, which was through Normandy again for the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
D-Day, yeah.
Which was phenomenal. Man, was it busy. But the rides are incredible, so they're open to anybody. You just have to pay for your flight there and back and getting yourself over there. You pay for your own meals, but breakfast and lunch are included. And all of the funds that you generate go to all of the programs. So the way Wounded Warriors Canada works now is they have 8 primary programs and they're self-funded, because they've gotten big enough that they're self-funded. So 85 cents of every dollar raised goes towards the program. Okay. Which is tremendous. It's one of the highest of any of the charities around, which is fantastic. I have many friends who have done the programs. I have friends who will tell you now wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for some of those programs.
Oh yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah, and through the rides, there's a lot of vets that go. Vets with PTSD, not just military, but police, RCMP, paramedic, firefighters. So because our programs basically are available for anyone in uniformed service. Okay. So when you go on these rides and you start talking to people, and some of them come out of their shells and really start talking because they don't understand that there's this much focus on trying to get them better, and they really appreciate that, and they're a lot of times are in awe. Many of them, it was life-changing for them, simply because they felt needed, wanted, and cared for. And those are just people on the bike ride. It's helped thousands of veterans, first responders, and their families, because we're one of the only charities that works with the families as well.
Oh, that's good.
So we do things for kids. We do stuff for spousal. Like we have single programs. So things like trauma resiliency program. So if you're someone that's had PTSD or has PTSD and you're having trouble dealing with it, you can do the trauma resiliency program, which is a program, and they're not. I say they're not group hugs. You don't go gather around a table, get a book, group hug at the end and walk away. They're intensive, clinically managed, clinically followed programs, which are specifically designed for people with post-traumatic stress. So the charity is near and dear to my heart. I mean, the number of people I know that it's helped is tremendous. And so going back to my bio, because I couldn't deploy with people like you, there's nothing worse than being the soldier that's left at the base.
Yeah.
When you join the military, is one of the things you want to do is you want to deploy. You want to go with your brothers and sisters because you fight and support your brothers and sisters in uniform. Not so much your government. That's where the government stuff goes out of it. That's not. You don't join the military for your government. You join the military for adventure, to do things, and to work for your country, but defend your country, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's the people beside you that you care the most about.
Yeah.
And so not being able to be deployed with them is always sat horribly with me. I mean, not going, like there's so many tours I missed and couldn't go because of my knee injuries, and a couple I didn't get selected because it just wasn't my time, or I wasn't the qualified person that they needed. So, so that's why I do this, and it's my way of supporting all you guys.
Well, and I think it's very important that you're doing it, and it's, and some would argue, myself included, that this calling is probably even more important, if not as important, as deploying, because there are times like some people, a lot of us sometimes, like when you go on tour, you're gone for 6 months, but it's pretty fucking easy. I never was one of the ones that got to spend a lot of time in Camp Mirage, but I would think that what the people that were doing it in Camp Mirage, although it was good to support the mission forward in Afghanistan, but I think what you're doing is longer than 6 months. You've been doing it now for years, and there's no quit in it. You keep doing it, and you keep the mission in mind. And for us, when we deploy, we do our 6 months, and then that's it. That's fucking gone, and then we're on to the next challenge. So I would argue that what you're doing is even better for the Canadian Forces than deploying. So good for you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. But it's literally, I do it because I love it. Jack Buchanan, who said to me one day, he said, I really appreciate you doing this. I said, Jack, it's easy. For me, this is easy. And I don't want that to sound contrite. It just, I have no problem doing it. I love doing it. And because I've seen the effects of it. Service dogs, as a prime example. So we, in Wound Warriors Canada, provide service dogs and do follow-ups with them. And some of the talks that I do because I'm the ambassador for the National Capital Region, so I do a lot of talks, presentations, check presentations, that sort of thing, on behalf of Wounded Warriors Canada. And one of the talks that I do, I bring a retired paramedic with me who we provided their service dog for, and she tells her story. So although I go on in front of people, and I'm the eye candy, as I like to say, for Wounded Warrior Canada. Well, you are. You're a good-looking man, that's for sure. So I do my little spiel and say, here's what Wounded Warriors Canada does, and then Julie comes on with her dog and talks about what happened to her. And very rarely is there a dry eye in the house, because here's the physical and intangible evidence of what your money goes towards. So it's massive. It's massive impact. Yeah. And that's really good for people to see that, because they can see what their money's doing. So that's one of the big things I do it. Nice. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about before we move on to the next two topics that you wanted to bring up was, were you an avid cyclist before you did these rides, or was this something that you were a mountain biker? Yeah, I like to mountain bike, but this is more road cycling. So, and it sounds daunting, and there are days that can be daunting, but if you can keep your butt in a saddle for 6 to 8 hours a day, and you train moderately and get in some sort of decent shape, you can do the ride. Because it's not a race, it's a ride. The whole idea is to have conversation with people, see where our forefathers walked during World War I, World War II, Bosnia. Because we went to Bosnia in 2018. We rode from Sarajevo down to Plivicki National Park. I never say that right because it's I can't pronounce that many vowels or consonants together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was stunning, but you want to see something interesting. You see so many signs of the war in Yugoslavia still to this day.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much damage there was. And guys that were on the ride, guys and girls that were on the ride with me, some of them, that's where their PTSD started. Mm-hmm. One of the first comments we got getting off the plane at the Sarajevo airport was a buddy of mine said, "Wow, last time I was here, there was burning vehicles everywhere and smoke and people shooting at me." Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't get to Bosnia until 2001, and the amount of devastation was still evident, and they'd stopped fighting 5 years prior to that. So it was quite a scene for my first tour to see all that stuff, and then to hear the stories about how brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, fucking husbands, wives turned on each other based solely on their nationality, or if you're a Serb or Croat or whatever. And I like to say, because I know a lot of times, a lot of friends of mine that were in the military that came from Quebec that were separatists at the time, when they went to Bosnia and saw what had happened, just because they wanted to secede or whatever, they're like, they weren't separatists any longer. So I think a lot of people need to go over and see that. And a lot of my friends refused to move back to Quebec after their career was done. So.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. Mm-hmm. You brought up a point that I can't remember now. It's completely slipped my mind. That's what old age does to you.
Well, is it the old age, or is it because you brought Jack Buchanan's name up and you're still suffering from that hermit's wine or whatever he used to always bring out?
Porch climber.
Yeah, Hermits and Screech was Jack's big things there.
Hermits cooking sherry. 4 Hawkwald. 6 Paardenburg, yeah.
Yeah. So
prayer
you...
meat. Hey? Prayer meat. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you also wanted to talk about a couple of other things that you have that you're into.
Yeah.
So
not that I'm into, but other veterans charities that are hugely important. Brass and Unity is one of them. Kelsey Sharon is the owner of that. She's a retired RCHA gunner who has PTSD and struggled for a while, and she started to design jewelry made out of old shell casings and shrapnel and stuff from shells, and they were bracelets. And I didn't wear mine today, unfortunately. I forgot to put it on this morning. But the money she makes from that, big chunks of it goes to different veterans programs and stuff that she supports. So anyone's interested, go to brassandunity.com. Not only can you buy some cool jewelry, both for men and women, but you are supporting several charities for Canadian Forces veterans. And additionally, Veterans House, which is run by Steve Beardwood, is another charity that does a lot to support veterans for various different reasons. You should actually try and get Steve on the show one day and talk about that because he's a Mefloquine vet.
Okay.
As is Frank, sitting right across from me. So there's a lot of different issues in regard to that, and with brain injuries and various other health issues due to Mefloquine, which has been an ongoing struggle for any of those vets to get any kind of recognition from that. And it's actually incredibly disappointing to listen to those stories and how they've been treated. So I strongly urge people to investigate Veterans House and that charity and learn more about Mefloquine and what it did to Canadian Forces members who were deployed.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to Steve about that because there's also 2 other guys, infantry guys that are really pushing this too. Mike Rood, I don't know if you've met him.
I know of him.
Yeah, and also John Dow. another guy. So yeah, it'd be good to have those guys on there. So Steve's place is like, he lives in Trenton area, I think, right?
Down near in the Kingston area.
So is that like he runs, like, is it a place that he runs?
No, it's actually, there's no office space. He runs it out of his home office basically, and he has other support and stuff. But if you go to Veterans, just make sure, because there's another Veterans House charity that's not.
Okay. So basically he's just doing
veteranshouse.ca.
Veteranshouse.ca, and that's for mefloquine education and support?
Yep.
Okay.
Not just mefloquine, but they have that's one of their main things. So basically here, I'll read their purpose. Our purpose is to provide quality peer support for veterans. We do this by providing guidance, ongoing support, and mentorship to veterans, mental health, nonprofit organizations, and through providing information and resources to veterans and healthcare providers. Veterans House partners with corporations and individuals committed to giving back to the veteran through one-time and continuous funding. As a registered charity, we are able to provide tax receipts to our donating partners, and there's a mission statement, etc. But it's again a solid charity. So those are the three main charities that Wounded Warriors Canada I'm an ambassador for, but we'll always talk about Veterans House and Brass and Unity for all the good things that they do as well. Cool.
Yeah, I know. I belong to a networking group here, Treble Victor. Which yeah. By the way, we got to get you out to a meeting.
Yes, someone else asked me to, and I don't know why. But yes, I got to go.
Yeah. I happen to know the secretary very well, so I'll get him to send you an email.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
Yeah, it's me.
I know.
Yeah.
I was pointing. You can't see that on radio. This is why I have a face made for radio.
Yeah. No, I still think you're gorgeous, man. And you keep saying that you used to be fit. You're still fit.
No, I'm fat and lazy.
Round as a shape, but that's cool.
That's true.
All right, so I usually like to end the show with what's up with what's the future? What's in the future for Matthew Muzzi?
Well, continuing supporting military vets and first responders, both serving and retired, in any of their mental health and ideally physical needs too, because it's still, I guess the biggest part of that is a struggle is so many of them don't know how to get the help. So that's improving. It's still not where it needs to be. So getting the awareness out there of how they can get the help, trying to raise more funds to make that more of that help available to them. Is a huge key for me. I would love to retire, but I'm not rich. I haven't won the lottery. And by the way, you do finances. Is winning the lottery a sound financial retirement strategy?
I will give you the short answer. No.
Damn.
No, it is not.
Frank lied to me. Frank said, "Just bet on the lottery. You'll be retired."
Yeah, no.
I got ponies. Ponies.
All right, so that's great, Frank. Holy fuck, I got Frank on the brain. Frank with no prostate, sitting here with his
He's got a partial
catheter.
Prostate. He's got a partial prostate. Oh, they took it all out.
Took it all
out. Walnut is gone.
Oh.
So, thank you very much, Matt, for coming in and doing this. I really appreciate you making the drive all the way out to Rockland. That's great.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.
It was awesome.
We'll do it again. Right.
And the and now that we've got Frank here, we'll just very quickly switch over to Frank. Say, Frank, how you feeling after your surgery?
Actually, pretty good, man.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck. All right, everybody, thank you very much.
And this is why everyone loves Norm.
Hey. Okay, no, seriously, Frank, how you doing?
No, good, man. I'm fucking. You know what?
Yeah.
It's out. That part of the worry's gone. So now it's just waiting to hear back from pathology to see how bad it was, right?
See if it spread to your brain. Oh no, sorry, that's
wrong head.
Me and Frank actually talked for an hour while I was driving home the other night.
Yeah, you're saying, yeah.
So we had a big long chat.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So once again, before I close off here, I'd just like to say once again, thanks again to Matt Muzzi. If you are a veteran or first responder or anything like that, and please, like I've said before, I'm getting sick and fucking tired of burying friends, and I don't like hanging out at funeral homes and grave sites any longer. So please reach out to myself, Alec McNorman Show at gmail.com, or Wounded Warriors, and ask for, if you're in the NCR, Matt Muzzi is your point of contact. He's the NCR ambassador. Keep making sure that you check out your PSA and having your DREs to keep your eye on prostate cancer.
And check your testicles too.
Yep, check your testicles.
And I'm always available to assist any females with the prostate.
There you go, 100%. And so, like I like to say at the end of every episode, like the meme says, be kind to everybody when you can, but have a plan to kill everybody in the room.
BrassandUnity.com, VeteransHouse.ca, WoundedWarriorsCanada.ca.
There you go.
Thanks for having me, Norm.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. All right, everybody, that's the Alec McNorman Show for today. Stay tuned for Norm's Rant. Well, everybody, that's episode 6 in the books. I'd like to be able to give you a rant right now, but unfortunately, I'm speaking to you as a bit of a broken man. Listening to Matt's story again as I was putting this together before sending it out today, it just reminds me of like how piss poor the military was back in the 80s and 90s, and we had some glory days back in Afghanistan. But since Afghanistan, we've been on our way down. And this time, however, though, it's not just the military that's feeling the pinch. It's the entire country. And I hate to sound like a broken record here, but I'm going to be saying it one more time. This liberal Trudeau government is so horrible and so shitty. And every time you turn on the news, like I looked on the news again today, and actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to take a step back and say I didn't really turn on the news. Linda reads me some news stuff, and then I follow up on it because I just can't stand the biased news any longer about pro-Trudeau this and pro-Trudeau that. And even when they're saying stuff like, oh, it looks like Trudeau lost another $135 million somewhere and nobody knows where it is, they're acting like it's like, no big deal, whatever, it's only $135 million, big deal. I mean, it's absolutely insane the amount of leeway that this man gets for the country. And mark my words, I've had many conversations with people in the last couple of days, weeks, months, about, I'd rather vote for an inept, immoral person than a triple K conservative. I mean, if that's what this country is coming to, man, then, check please. I'm going to get the fuck out of here because it's just ridiculous. People, like, when you are willing to overlook the fact that this government is 100% immoral, inept, corrupt, but yet says nice flowery things, well then, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, it's just, I'm having a bit of a down day, so, whatever. It is what it is. This isn't much of a rant, but I do have to say is, like, we got to start coming together, people. We got to get this country back on track. We got to, my granddaughter's going to be born in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks, and she's already going to be like, what, $200,000 in debt by the day that she's born? I mean, this is fucking ridiculous, people. Anyway, I promise I'll have a better rant for you guys after the next show. But for this one, I'm just, I'm happy to share Matt's story and the people that he brought through the show that are still doing good things for veterans and for the country. But I wish we could see more engagement for the country and putting the country first, as opposed to what everybody's doing now is like they're just voting for what's going to benefit them and not the country. So you know what? Fuck it. So until next time, everybody have a great day, and take care of each other, because even though all you left-wing fucking people out there think that the government's going to take care of you, they're not, and we'll be here to pick up the pieces. See you guys next Monday.